All right, so it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Adam Schwartz is the founder and principal of the Cooperative Way, a 6-year-old consulting firm dedicated to assisting all types of cooperative businesses to succeed. Prior to founding the Cooperative Way, Schwartz served as Vice President for Public Affairs and Member Services from 2005 to 2011 for the National Cooperative Business Association. From 2001 to 2005, he was Vice President of External Affairs for the National Rural Telecommunications Cooperative. And from 1992 to 2001, he was the Senior Legislative Representative for the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association. He's a frequent speaker and author on cooperative business. He's also an adjunct instructor at the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And he writes a column for the Rural Electric magazine, #GoCoop, the future of cooperatives. And he's appeared on MSNBC and CNN to promote cooperatives as better business models for economic and social change. So let's welcome Adam today.
Cooperatives are the best business model on earth. That is my thesis, and I'll be sticking to it throughout the day. Thank you so much for the great pleasure of having me join you here today. I'm very excited to be here. And what I'd like to do as we get started is get your voices in the room to get started. And it says restart now, okay? Ooh. Ooh. Getting Windows ready to reply. I guess I'm getting an update. All right. Hey, that's not a problem. We can continue because what the first slide was going to say is why are you here? And so that's what I would like to do. I did go on your website, looked at the student bios. Appreciate that. But just pop around the room if you would. Introduce yourself and tell me why you're here, both in this program and then why you're here today as well. And the reason could be just because it's extra credit and it's required. That's okay, no problem. So let's just start here.
Yeah, so my name is Zane McDonald. I'm here at the Institute primarily because I was interested in the multidisciplinary approach that we can get, here at Davis and I'm here because
We don't have to get to everybody, so I'm going to let you go next.
Great. Nick Pappas. I'm here in grad school in this program because I want to address part of it in energy systems, and I'm eager to hear how cooperatives can do that.
Great. All right, let's go. Let's just make it real quick.
right, anyone else? There are, and most of all, co-ops. Anyone here study co-ops from grade school to graduate school? That's generally the response I get, so no worries there. Although I did learn yesterday there is a co-op course here at UC Davis. Where is it? Does everyone know you? This slide and logo comes to us from the National Cooperation. If you go down to the Davis Food Co-op or Sacramento Natural Foods, you'll see this. This is a co-op of co-ops that allows those food co-ops to do purchasing in a more efficient way. And it is at the base of what co-ops do practically. Alone, there's what we can do, and we can do a lot more when we work together. That is at the heart of what cooperatives are all about. In my work, the name of my business is called the Cooperative Way. I'm a consultant to co-ops in all different sectors, focusing on electric co-ops. A lot of my work is around the culture of the business, and culture is what ties us together in society level. In a business setting, what I say is culture is to an organization what water is to a fish. Simply the environment in which we all live. And what are we going to do then to manage that culture? And for me, co-ops, because we are owned by the people who use the service, we have a much greater ability to create very purpose and meaningful driven culture. And that's a big part of my work. This is not a group of current board members of an electric co-op, although sometimes that can be accused of that. Those are some of the original pioneers in 1844 who created the first modern co-op that was in Rochester, England. And they gave us these 7 co-op principles that made this business different. They were artisans and weavers, and they were forced to buy goods from the company store and they were just getting ripped off. And so what they did is they created this cooperative business model with these 7 principles. And even though it says one man, one vote, back in 1844 they gave women the equal right to vote. And that meant, it was a great stride at that time, some 70 years before women had the right to vote in this country. Co-ops were saying that they should be treated equally. The other thing they dedicated time was to promote it and educate, which is critically important, as evidenced by the fact that we don't teach cooperatives in schools. It's incumbent upon co-ops themselves to teach folks. This slide just clearly contrasts the difference between investor-owned businesses and cooperative. And a lot of us, when we work in co-ops, we say that we're just different because it's in our DNA. The problem is when we see your DNA. So you have to talk about the difference, and you have to live the difference. And that's what I spend a good time working. Co-ops exist not just in the United States, but in most countries around the world. In 2012, the United Nations declared it the International Year of Cooperatives. Probably you didn't hear about it. It was similar to the tree falling in the forest when I was there. But there was at least a recognition that co-ops are out there and making a difference in the world economy, even if we don't know a lot about it at this point. Just more facts and figures about co-ops. There's still a few holdover Soviet bloc countries where co-ops are not well favored because they were government imposed during the time of the Cold War. So they have a little bit of a bad reputation, but that is being overcome. And every co-op that exists around the world gets engaged by these 7 cooperative principles. And they adhere to them, even though with some degrees of variance. With electric co-ops, you're going to keep if you live in the service territory where the electric 12,000, higher. What? A million, lower. So we're in between 12,000 and a million. 35,000, higher. 700,000. 700,000, lower. 55, lower. 50,000, lower. Okay. 39,300. Okay. And every one of those dots represents a car. So you can see that we're widely distributed throughout the country in every state and every congressional district. There's 6,000 credit unions, 900 electric co-ops, and we've got 100,000 agricultural co-ops. So we are really in every sector of the economy that you can imagine. Now, you can probably tell from my accent that I am a native of the South. That would be South Brooklyn, a rural REI do a couple of years ago that kind of made noise? And what were they doing on that day? Right. And they closed their doors. Because think about that. I'd love to know the origin of this idea. Someone was sitting at REI and say, I have a great idea. It's the busiest shopping day of the year. Now I'm closing doors. And not only did they have that idea, but they were able to get it through the organization and sold it. And it turned out to be a great thing for them. Great for their employees. They told their employees to go take a hike. They're a camping store, right? Go take a hike. It made a lot of sense for them. They got about $10 million worth of publicity. Because at the time when Walmart and Kmart were opening up, not just on Black Friday at 5 a.m., but opening up on Thanksgiving Day, pulling people away from their families on that day, REI was taking the exact opposite. And the reason they said that they could do it was because they're a co-operative. They don't have outside investors that are going to scream and bloody murder. How could you do that? You're going to hurt shareholder value by doing it. Because their owners understood it and appreciated it. I think a wonderful example. And they put co-op back in their logo at the same time, which they've been missing from their logo for many, many years, which is great. It makes my job a lot easier. This restaurant supply chain solution, probably have never heard of them, but I suspect that many of you have been to a Kentucky Fried Chicken or a Pizza Hut, so you have recognized that co-op. The way that works is all the franchise owners are part of the co-op. So they don't pay KFC for anything except a secret recipe. Everything else is a co-op of the franchise owners. And that's a million chickens a day, $6 billion a year business that they're involved in. Pachamama is a local co-op here in Sacramento. We were there last night. They're opening up a new cafe in the great story. They're owned by farmers in five different countries and wonderful coffee. Health Partners is out of Minneapolis. They insure 1.3 million lives, 2,000 employees. The doctors, the patients, and the administrators are all part of the cooperative. And the doctors get measured on how well their patient does. Isn't that a unique way of measuring healthcare in this country? We have a quantity system of healthcare. The doctor's office buys an MRI machine, the number of MRI prescriptions goes up because they've got to figure out a way to pay for that machine. That's not the way health partners do it. Organic Valley is the leading organic co-operative in the country. Started with 7 farmers in Wisconsin. Today they're serving 7 states, over $1 billion in revenue. So just an example of all the different industries that we work with. This is taken from the brochure that you have here. And here in Sierra, where Emily and Lister from number 3. How far is that from you? About 3 hours. About 3 hours? Yeah. And how many members do you have? 66. So it's an electric utility. And why don't you explain what else you do besides electricity?
I'm actually from Golden State Power Cooperative, so I represent all 3 cooperatives in the state. Plume Sierra is the one where I am located. But the electric cooperatives, we're just like any other utility, except we're part of the community. As far as the service we provide, we're a utility service provider, but we are nonprofit, and we're owned by our members, and so our members tell us when they want to sponsor stuff. But as far as the service we receive, it's the same service.
And there's another question, yeah? Yeah.
It depends on the electric cooperative. And so it really, all three cooperatives are independent organizations and have their own resources. And so Surprise Valley is actually part of Bonneville Power. And so they are getting hydropower from the Northwest. So it's completely separate from Tyco, as opposed to
All right, thanks. And please interject questions as they come up. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into electric co-ops as we go forward. And the way every co-op got started was a group of people, they were just ticked off that they didn't have electricity, and they came together to do it, because that's what happens. So back in the 30s and the 40s and early 50s, that's what a lot of folks did. The founders, they started their electric co-ops. There's also about 300 telecommunications co-ops as well, and a number of electric co-ops have gotten in to telecommunications. And then after that first phase, the founders phase, then we had a group of innovators. What they did is they realized that after they started offering electricity on the retail side, that there's many other services that you need to support that activity of providing retail electricity. So they formed a whole series, and this doesn't even mention all of the organizations that are out there. But they realized they needed to do more things. So they created the Trade Association, NRECA, CFC, which is a finance corporation, because it's a capital-intensive industry. They needed capital. So all the electric co-ops came together to form that finance corporation. They realized that they needed technology solutions, and ultimately it was software and billing services. So they formed NISC and SEDC. Then they realized that they didn't like being in the office 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time. So they created the Cooperative Response Center, which has the calls go to Austin, Minnesota, or a couple other call centers around the country, and then they can be dispatched when there's an outage to that local co-op. They also needed insurance, so they created a Federated Rural Insurance Exchange to provide insurance. They created G&Ts, Generation and Transmission Co-ops, so there's roughly 65 of those that generate the power that then sell it back to the distribution members, which then sell it to the end users. So that the act of creating that one type of co-op, the distribution electric co-op, spurred the creation of more co-ops. It's one of the wonderful things that co-ops do when they have a problem is they form another co-op to solve that problem, and so it begets, and it's a great way of doing it. Then in the 70s through 90s, we had the energy crisis. Jimmy Carter told us to put on a sweater and be a little bit chillier in our house, and the word energy and crisis first came to be in the United States, and we became more conscious of our energy use, and that's when efficiency standards started to roll in as well. And then a lot of co-ops, and I am generalizing here because Plumas is certainly an outlier in many cases, just decide we're just going to continue to do our business and not get into a lot of other things. But then other co-ops realized that they needed to get in to other businesses, because when you work in rural areas and you are the energy provider, it takes more than just providing energy to have a thriving community. And I believe that we are in a renaissance for this cooperative model. And I hope that to convince many of you of that as well, because whatever the issue is or the problem that we have, there is a co-op solution for it. This was a study that was done a couple years ago about consumers and their spending habits. And you can see where the older type of consumer is and where the newer consumers, most of you in this room, are. And the idea, co-ops answer that question of what's in it for me with the answer of what's in it for we. It's talking about people's self-interest. What happens for a co-op to come together successfully is people have to have a similar self-interest. So back in the 30s and 40s, they didn't have electricity. They came together. They weren't able to get credit, so they formed credit unions. Farmers didn't have a place to sell their products, so they formed marketing cooperatives like Sunkist and others, because they needed to do that. So when there's a commonality of interests, that's when co-ops get started. And I think when we look at what co-ops are, what our values are, what our principles are, it fits very well with the modern consumer and with the millennial generation as well. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit to go a little bit deeper into electric co-ops, because I know many of you are obviously very interested in energy. So this is, shows the distribution co-ops and the G&Ts. So the G&Ts are the generation and transmission co-ops. They are owned by the distribution co-ops, so they're a second-tier co-op. They might have anywhere from a dozen distribution co-ops to 144 distribution co-ops that own the G&T. The largest one in the country is Basin Electric, which is headquartered in North Dakota, but serves in 9 different states. And by the way, this presentation is available for all of you. One of the things I say about my presentation is that when you steal one person's idea, it's called plagiarism. When you steal a lot of people's ideas, it's called research. And everything in my presentation is research, so it's for you to use in any way that you like as well. So this gives you an idea of how it works. The G&T works through the local co-op, and then it goes to the home and business. And this is the footprint. It covers about 75% of the landmass of the United States, but only serves about 11% of the population. We like to call that the hole in the donut. We have a lot of territory with not a lot of people and businesses. But obviously, it's a very, very much needed. And co-ops operate. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. Yep.
Question. I'm from West Virginia.
Okay.
And West Virginia is a clear hole there in
Yes.
your map over there on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, because I haven't researched it specifically, but because of the coal mines and their high energy uses, even though it's a low population state, there was value in investor-owned utilities serving West Virginia. So there's only one electric co-op in the state because they were able to make money selling electricity early on. Right. Okay. Any other questions at this point? Okay. Cool. This shows the average number, and in the utility space, numbers matter in a big way as to your average size. There are some very large munis, SMUD being one of the largest ones in the country, LA, another Jacksonville, Orlando, so there are some very big ones, but there's also a lot of small munis as well that serve even population smaller than electric co-ops. So these are the 3 types of utilities that currently serve the United States. Wherever you live, you're covered by one of these 3 types. Shows the density per mile of line. Co-ops obviously the smallest by quite a large factor. But because we're a cooperative and our business model does not require us to make a profit that we have to give to outside investors, we're able to do so still in a cost-effective manner. Was there a question? Yes. It means the city owns the utility. So in SMUD's case, Sacramento, the city owns the utility. And it is definitely different than a cooperative because there's not that direct representation. You're not directly electing the board for it. Breakdown of the residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation. And you can see that once again, co-ops are much more residential, which is higher cost to serve. You're selling less kilowatt hours per mile of line to do that. So we do have some real challenges in the co-op business model, but it allows us, because of the structure, to be able to be cost competitive. And here's the rates that you can see. Now, yeah, please.
I had a question on the
Sure.
last slide.
Okay.
Is that energy sales or customers?
This is
61 or
one. I
12.
believe this is customers. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. But I will double check. All right. Yeah. From a rate standpoint, we're given our density. When you have 7.5 consumers per mile of line, we're doing quite well. And in part because if you're writing a check to PG&E, part of that money that you're sending to PG&E is going to shareholders. I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I can be a shareholder of PG&E and never take a kilowatt hour of service. I might not really care how good a job they do serving their customers, because for me it's just about getting the dividend, right? And that forces the upward pressure on the rates. Yes, sir.
So is there a fraction of the cost that does go to T&D as far as are you using
Co-ops we're all interconnected. So there's three basics. There's the east part of the grid, the west part, and then Texas in ERCOT. Yes. So that's definitely all shared. Most cooperatives do not own transmission lines. Right. Exactly. Missouri being one of the real exceptions. The co-ops in Missouri own most of the transmission lines. Yep.
So I'm a little confused.
Okay.
I thought the G&T co-ops own the transmission lines.
In some cases, they might. All right. But in many cases, they might not.
So could you elaborate what a G&T co-op is?
They own the power plants.
They
Own the power plants. Yes, exactly. And they may own transmission, and they may own parts of transmission lines, and not others. Right? Yep.
So, what do you know about the difference in the margins on average?
Well, co-ops operate on a not-for-profit basis. So if we need to make money, right? Because if we don't make money, we're not going to be able to stay in business. But when the profits or margins are made by the co-op, it is allocated back to the members, and it is returned back to the members over a set period of years. It might take 20 years for that return to happen. Most co-ops now have gone to a hybrid system of returning some of those margins back to their members after a year, so that people see the benefit early on, and then it gets fully paid out generally in a period of 15 to 20 years. So that's the. Yeah.
What is sort of the average profit margin? This non-profit thing is, it's a way of selling. And if you're sort of the devil's advocate, there is 97% of the cost in a company is salaries.
Yeah.
And if the salaries and the management and everything is about the same in the co-op than in the shareholder company.
It's not.
Yeah, but that you say,
Right.
but I mean, that's an important part. I'm a member of big co-ops in Norway.
Yeah.
And when you go to grocery, you see that prices are about the same, the directors were the same. Oh, it's zero.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, in the US, it's a big cooperative.
Yes. Well, it varies. So in Pluma Sierra, you are managed, oversaw. You have a general manager, but then there is a member-elected board. So the 9 or 11 members, seven members of your board are elected by those 6,600 folks that are there. So there is a greater sense of accountability in the organization. And when it comes,
Yeah, but the point is that is when it's small. So
Yeah.
I mean, many
Right.
cooperatives, when they're small, and you can devote your time as in
Right.
agriculture. But if you go to grocery, I mean, you don't devote time in how a grocery is operated.
well, and I think it depends on the grocery. And at the Davis Food Co-op here does, right? It's again a consumer-elected board by the folks in the community. So, yes. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And there are some tax rules around that and how that gets treated over time. But yes, absolutely. And then all of the co-ops that are members of NRECA, the Electric Co-op Association, have a small adder on every meter that goes to research and development as well. So.
Is there a concern that absolute democracy could put an ill-informed, ill-advised person on the board?
Now, why would you ask that? Right? I can't imagine. Can we think of an example where that has happened? Okay. So there you go. Yes, there is. There is that concern, and that is one of the areas that Keith and I have spent a great deal of time talking about. We have very low participation in our election process in co-ops. It averages about 10 to 15% of the members that vote, which disappoints me. And I'm trying to work to get more participation, but we also want more educated participation in this. And we have had cases where people have been elected to boards with very strident agendas that have not been, depending on your viewpoint, in the best interest of all the members. So there have been some cases where there's been some real problems on that front. Yep. This just again showcasing that one of the attributes that a lot of people have about co-ops is that we're old and dated and not doing things in a technology savvy way. There's a great deal of research that co-ops are doing to promote smart energy technology, a smart grid as well. In the area of AMI, you can see we're leading the country in that one of the real issues now is what to do with all the data that they're receiving. I mean, there's so much information that is coming back from the meters. They're not quite sure yet on what to do. There's a lot of demand-side management as well. This showcasing the amount of wind capacity that co-ops are currently doing, and that continues to grow. North Dakota, Missouri, Texas are some of the leading countries in that. Keith's dissertation was on this topic. Keith, anything else you want to add? Okay, all right. This just sort of showing you about, the wind maps that exist. I'm sure you know more about this than me, but they've done a good job. Offshore wind is something that's being looked at as well in certain parts of the country, and we'll see if we'll get there. Solar, of course, we were talking last night about maybe there's too much solar in certain parts of the country at certain times of the day. That continues to grow. One of my clients is in Colorado, and Colorado is sunnier than Florida. And one of the challenges that they're facing is that their members are putting on solar panels on their roof. And so their response has been to do an industrial solar project so that the members don't have to put the panels on the roof. They can buy it straight from the co-op. And that's part of the change that's going on in the industry that people are going to have to respond to as well. Yep.
One thing I would add to highlight some of this is that investor-owned utilities are very responsive to policy. Right now, we know with the current administration, there's not a lot of public policy that's going to be pushed for renewables. The great thing with electric co-ops is that if you're a member of an electric co-op, you can apply pressure to your local electric co-op to invest more in wind and solar. This means through each one of these co-ops getting involved in wind and solar, it becomes de facto renewable energy policy. So instead of waiting on the government to do things, our electric co-ops can do a lot of this for us.
And there are co-ops as that map had shown before, in really all different parts of the country. From a political standpoint, very different places, from Aspen, Colorado, to the Powder River Basin in Wyoming, to Hilton Head, South Carolina, to very rural eastern South Dakota. So the politics changes with the co-op as well, and their interest in potentially renewables. This slide I found kind of interesting as well, because this is comparing solar resources and income. It's the ability to do solar is seen as a higher income activity right now, and what co-ops are making solar available to folks on lower income scale. Yep.
I'm just curious, what do you mean when you say making solar? Does that mean like having a solar panel, or is it?
Okay, so it means that the co-op is offering their members the option to buy into solar panels that they've put together on solar farms or industrial sites. Right, yeah, exactly. And in most cases, that's voluntary. Some now are mixing it into their mix, so they're taking all their different resources and coming up with a blended rate, but some are giving members the option of paying additional if they want to do that. This is just a couple of examples, and I give this to you, if there's folks that want to do some more research with any individual co-op, we can make introductions for you. One of the things that I want to make sure that I leave here is that with the understanding that there are really some wonderful jobs out there for electric co-ops. When you were telling me what your interests are, for every one of your interests, there's a co-op job that is possible. This is one of the larger projects, I think the largest one in Pahrump, Nevada, so not too far from here. Just another example of some of the solar programs that Seminoles in Florida, East Kentucky. Wolverine is in Michigan. So I'm sure there's students here from all over the country. Arkansas has got an aggressive program as well to showcase, that we are definitely, working in renewables. Now, obviously, the storage question, which you probably know much more about than me, is one of the issues that we're facing. So there is research going on that as well in different areas of the country. I think that now we one about the meters in a moment. So just wanted to quickly give you the sense that there are a bunch of projects going on out there throughout the country that are yes, please. I'm sorry. Mobility. Well, they're in Vancouver. There's MODA, which is like a Zipcar, and that's done on a cooperative basis. There's also a couple of co-op bike in some cities, transportation. Yeah, so there are some transportation co-ops. I'm showcasing the principles again because that principle of cooperation among cooperatives. So this is a project in which all of these different co-ops are currently participating with Sunshot. I don't know if you guys have been working with that to showcase its effect in rural areas. So and these are 30 megawatt projects or less. So and these co-ops range in size. Some of them are G&Ts. Some of them are smaller distribution systems. Yeah. Yes.
Like in grid management, there is obviously economies of scale.
Right.
Because you need investment. I sort of missed to hear you say in which cases are cooperatives.
Well, I have a right. Okay. Okay. Well, the co-op business model is as flexible as Gumby. So you can really create it in a way that makes the most sense for the owner users. The only business that I've not seen done as a cooperative is the military. For everything else, that there is a co-op. So I'm hard pressed to say when there's a reason where the co-op won't work. Obviously there are cases.
Question:
Okay.
In which cases is the value of a co-op for the member
Limited. Go ahead.
Well, the great thing about a cooperative in this way is that if the value isn't there for the member, it goes under. It's not going to be a viable at all. With the electric co-ops, what they've done is, in order to achieve scale, they form these co-ops of co-ops. So that way they can pull the purchasing power and in many ways, it's even more impressive they are where they're at now, considering investor owners have had a lot of public policy advantages over the last 20 years. One of the big areas is in wind and solar. They had all these various tax credits and whatnot. The electric co-ops only recently got parity in 2007.
Right.
So the investor owners have had 15, 20 years up to that. So when folks kind of criticize electric co-ops for not being innovative, and then going back to the other thing, the electric co-ops in general, they're just, if they're not viable, they're not going to be up and running.
within that structure? I mean, if you're a director, you have the. Take this U.S. government example. Many of your sort of criteria and that's the case. And one point thing. If you need a lot of research and development into a business, or if you don't get money from members, you have to go to bank or something. Shareholding companies can attract investors, have an industrial interest, they can use sort of soft money into that structure. It's not a challenge for a co-op.
The challenge of attracting capital. Yeah, oh, it is, absolutely. And what the electric co-ops have done is they've created their own capital resources. They had the government, which was a great start, and then there's two co-op entities, CoBank and CFC, that provide the capital for the construction of the lines and the power plants. And on the research and development, they have figured out a way to help research, and they partner with other entities like EPRI and others, because when the research, a kilowatt hour is a kilowatt hour. It doesn't know if it was generated by a co-op or a muni or an IOU. So the industry research is fungible among all of the sectors.
If you go into that loop, the power is not equally owned by the members anymore. Then you sort of very close to a shareholding company. I mean, human is human.
Right, yes, yeah, and what I say is that I think co-ops are closer and more in alignment with what the actual human needs are of the people who are using the business, and I think that alignment serves us well. Yes.
Is a co-op electric as reliable as an industry?
Absolutely, yeah. Our reliability stats are terrific. Absolutely, yep.
So along the vein, because most co-ops are basically highly adaptable and fitted to what are the major challenges that are preventing them from being as widespread as they should be if they're, so what are the challenges that they can be adapted to?
I think, well, one structurally is that we don't teach about co-ops, so people don't know it. So if I were to get an MBA at most of the prestigious or non-prestigious business schools in this country, they don't talk about co-ops. So young people don't think about it as a business option. So that, I think education is one of the fundamental failures that the co-op movement, we haven't done a better job of making sure that we're teaching about co-ops early on. And then if you are in this just to make money, if you have that in Wall Street investment banker attitude, a co-op is not for you. That's because it's not about maximizing profit for the individuals. It's about doing what's best for the community and the members as a whole. Now, this is not to say that you will not make a good living working at a co-op. There are 7-figure salaries in cooperatives around the country, and many 6-figure salaries. You're just not. It's not going to be as much. The average CEO salary of an electric co-op is going to be substantially lower than the CEO of an investor-owned utility. That's absolute reality. So if you're motivated just by making money, co-op is probably not the best answer.
With that, Adam, though, if you're wanting to go into rural areas, you do good for rural areas. There's 900 plus electric co-ops. You can go into the middle of nowhere and make $120,000.
And even more than that, absolutely. Yep. Well. We're way out of my knowledge here when we talk about geothermal, so I just put this map up for those of you who might be interested in this to showcase that co-ops are involved in this. Microgrid technology is something that a number of co-ops are looking at as well. Some are in very difficult terrain. There's one co-op in the mountains of North Carolina, last time I checked, about a year ago, still used a mule to get to their lines, all right, because that's how difficult the terrain was. So microgrid technology, I think, will offer some real benefits in the future for folks. Electric charging stations are obviously throughout the country now. Many electric co-ops are using them, using drone technology as well to do the inspections, because they have so many more miles of line that have to be looked at. So it's a safer way of doing it. I know there's lots of work on the storage battery, and I look forward to the day when that is fully operational and will be great fun. Right now, what co-ops are doing, and others as well, is using the water heater as the storage battery, heat it up at night when demand is low, store the heat there, and then during the day when it can get used. So a number of co-ops are pushing folks, because there's a little bit of a conflict. As we increase efficiency, we're also decreasing revenue. And they're needing to find a way to balance that. A big push among co-ops to be consumer-centric, more so than they have ever been before, and answering the needs of their members. One of the questions I ask co-op leaders is if someone else can come into your service territory and offer electricity that is just as safe, just as reliable, at a lower cost, should your co-op exist. Right? Because ultimately, it's about the members who own it. And someday we might see a redistribution of the way co-ops are operating and a little bit different focus on what their mission is as well. One of the things that yes, sir. Yes, yep. In fact, in Minnesota, southern Minnesota, the part that borders Iowa, 12 co-ops came together to form a 13th co-op that bought out Alliant Energy, which was an investor-owned utility. So some 45,000 former customers are now members of those distribution co-ops. PP&L sold territory. Yeah, so some of that territory gets sold. There's a couple of areas, not many, Texas primarily, where the distribution area is dual certified. So the individual consumer has the right to choose between which electric company, and it's hardwired. There's two sets of wires running down. Very inefficient, not a very good model. Texas also, though, has open competition, so that if the co-op elects to be in that competitive market, they can have consumers from anywhere in the state. Now, they also risk losing their consumers, so it's a bit of a risk. There's one electric co-op that has entered into that market. So you can live in downtown Houston and be a member of an electric co-op if you choose to join Nueces Electric Co-op. And this idea of broadband, the idea that we're going to be in communities, broadband is the next electricity. Clearly, no one would live no one of my age or younger is going to live in a community that doesn't offer broadband. Quickly, just talking about international activities. This is NRECA has been in this business since 1962, and it's operated in 43 different countries. A lot of work going on right now in Haiti. Bolivia is the home to the largest electric co-op in the world. That was helped started by NRECA. The Philippines is a very sophisticated electric co-op system. So, part of the idea of paying this forward. Some of the examples that I've just sort of mentioned. It's a wonderful model. It works well in developing countries as well as in the industrialized world. And a lot of the funding comes from USAID, and then a lot of the electric co-ops voluntarily send their linemen to do the operations, and they will donate used equipment. They refurbish it and then send it overseas on the trips. This is a quick little video that talks about where electric co-ops have been and where they're heading, and hopefully I can get the little arrow to show up.
Ranches in small towns in America.
So that video obviously traces some of the history of where co-ops got started and where they need to be heading in the future. Now, one of the things, as I said, there are 900 different electric co-ops. They're all going to be going at their own pace in the different types of things that they adopt. The smallest co-op has 800 members. Right? That is a very low number of people to be operating a utility. The largest is about 250,000. So on a comparative scale, they are smaller, but definitely playing above their weight. This is, just going back to sort of the broader cooperative context. This is co-op housing. This is at the University of Florida Cooperative Living Organization. This is a study that was done by the International Cooperative Alliance, which is an organization of all different types of co-ops around the world. They just had their annual meeting in Malaysia a couple weeks ago. And they came up with the 5 different areas that co-ops need to do a really good job at if they're going to be thriving in the future. And this idea of participation, of getting citizens active in the governance of their cooperatives, I think is critically important. One of my own theories is that the reason why democracy suffers in this country is because we don't do it very well, because we don't have a lot of practice doing it. Democracy is more than just voting once every 4 years. There's an activeness that needs to come from our citizenship, and if co-ops can be part of that by regenerating that interest, I think that we would be doing our society a great service. On sustainability, obviously that has an environmental context, which is great, and we want to have that, but it's also what we're doing for communities. Many of these rural areas are struggling economically, and the electric co-op is a real part of that economic development. Making sure that the laws are favorable to co-ops and capital. Electric co-ops have done a really good job. There's no electric co-op in the country that is in need of capital that can't get it, because they've developed those sources for themselves to do it. This was a survey that was done a couple years ago. The numbers in yellow showcase how much higher co-ops rank than investor-owned for-profit businesses. So what this showcases to me is that if people know that the business is a co-op, they're more likely to want to do business with them, which is great. But we've got a lot of co-ops out there that have not done a very good job of showcasing the fact that they're a co-op. There's a number of books out there. Screw Business as Usual by Richard Branson, the eccentric owner of Virgin Atlantic. He mentions co-ops about a dozen times in that book. Humanizing the Economy talks about co-ops in a dozen different countries and different kinds of businesses that they're in. The largest worker co-op in the world is the Mondragon co-op in the Basque region of Spain. There's 100,000 individuals that are the owners of that company. They all work for it. They're in a wide variety of different business lines: banking, education, appliance manufacture, lots of different types of businesses. This is a company called National Information Solutions Cooperative. They grow about 2 people a week in the number of employees. They provide software and billing solutions for utilities in the country, and really use the cooperative business model as a strategic advantage in the marketplace. This book traces the political history of electric co-ops from FDR through the Obama administration, and it's heavily tied. The growth of electric co-ops had a big role in politics. Okay, what am I talking about here? Credit union, right, all right. Let's see.
Hi there, my name is Larissa, and welcome to the difference between banks and credit unions, presented by YoungFreeAlberta.com. Part 1, Structure, Profit, and Icons. The differences between banks and credit unions begin with their structure. Credit unions are democratic, kind of like Canada. When you make a deposit, you're buying a membership. Decisions are made by a volunteer board of directors, who are elected by members like you. Because the board is also made up of members, decisions are based on what's best for the people. Banks don't have members, they have shareholders. Lots of the time, the shareholders don't even belong to the bank in question. That's ironic, kind of like the end of Romeo and Juliet. Customers have no say in how the bank is run because a paid board of directors makes all the decisions. And guess what? Decisions are based on what's best for the small group of investors. But wait a second, you say. Just yesterday, a bank offered me a free iPod if I started an account with them. That doesn't sound like a decision. 2 weeks. Meanwhile, credit union members will still be reaping the benefits. So, what does it come down to? I paid you like my iPod, my bank gave it to me. Paid you like my long list of free services, my credit union gave them to me.
So, not a particularly high budget video that explains the difference between the investor-owned model and the cooperative one. This photo comes to us from a credit union in North Carolina. You can see on the mirror here, it says, State Employees Credit Union, meet SECU's owners, you're looking good. This is a $30 billion credit union, 250 branches, second largest credit union in the country. Are folks familiar with Payday Lending? Have you heard of Payday Lenders? Right. Growing up in Brooklyn, we had a different term for them. We called them loan sharks because that's what they are. They charge interest rates of 300% and really take people who are most vulnerable in their life and trap them in that debt. So this credit union came up with a salary advance program. They charge an 8% interest rate. You get 1 hour financial counseling when you take out the loan. And when you pay the loan back at the end of the month, 5% of what you pay back goes into a savings account in your own name. So at the end of 18 months, you've now saved enough money, you no longer need a payday loan. It is their most profitable product, and they want no one to use it. 10 years they've been doing this. They have cycled 40,000 people out of the payday loan debt trap, generating over $80 million in savings. They grow 8,000 members a month. How much money do you think they spend on advertising? That's right. Because what do people do when you do service like that? They tell people. And these days you can tell a lot more people about it. So when they need a home loan, a mortgage, where do they go? Right back to the credit. This is just a wonderful demonstration of the cooperative difference. Now, electric co-ops do energy efficiency programs. And when I'm talking to electric co-op audiences, I say, what's the point of an energy efficiency program? Well, it's to sell less energy. What do you sell? Well, we sell energy. And you want people to use less of the product that you're selling. I don't hear McDonald's or Coca-Cola ever selling that to their members, to their customers. And it creates this issue that what are we going to do? And one of the ways that co-ops are moving that as efficiency drives down sales is what can we do to move to more electric energy appliances. So switching out from a gas heater to an electric one might be one. Or also becoming advisors, being a more consumer-centric utility. Maybe getting into the operation and maintenance of rooftop solar panels if that's what the members want, and making sure that people understand that they own the electric company and using it, and making sure that people understand the fact that this is a locally owned business. So this electric co-op in Alaska was able to provide the seed funding for a Davis-like co-op market in the store, because they know that just selling electricity is not going to make a community great, that you have to have a hardware store, a grocery store, hospital. Yes, sir.
In the energy sector, wouldn't public-owned companies parts of the
Yes, they can. So one of the things that most munis do is that the rates that they charge are higher than their costs to provide the energy, and they use those excess funds to subsidize other city services, which is fine, parks, recreation, all of that. But that's part of it. With an electric co-op, the members have more of a direct say in what gets done. Ben, how are we doing on time? Because we've been moving the Q&A in there. I've got a few more. We're okay? All right, you tell me when I need to shut up. These are some of the local co-ops in the area. Briar Patch is up in Grass Valley. The San Francisco Bay Area is really one of the hotbeds for the worker co-op movement. Their association is called No Boss. Arizmendi Bakery, if you've been down there, is terrific. It's a series of worker-owned cooperative bakeries. Very cool. About 15 years ago, co-ops got together and said, we're going to have our own domain name, so .coop, which is a great way of delineating if the business is a co-op. We don't have 100%, nowhere near that take. I wish all the large ag co-ops would use .coop as their domain name. My job would be easier if they did that. And it's just a great way of showing that we're a co-op. Coopoly is a game that was developed by a group. Folks have played Monopoly, right? What's the purpose of Monopoly? Bankrupt everybody, right? Make all the money, right, and everyone else is bankrupt. Now, wouldn't that be fun to live in a community like that, right? What Coopoly, the object of this game is only one, everyone wins or everyone loses. There's only one game piece. And you have to make a series of decisions as you go along the game to whether this co-op is successfully going to be formed or not. That's the website. It was created by a worker co-op called Tessa, and they have a sliding scale. They recommend $40 is the price. Makes a nice holiday gift if you're interested. I'm not making any money on it, so I assure you on that. Or you can pay $10 for it. It's a sliding scale, whatever you want to pay. But it's a good learning tool about cooperatives. All right, quick little game for you. All right, I want everyone here in this room to picture a yield sign in your brain. All right, everyone got that? You got the yield sign in your brain? All right, what colors did you see? Okay, yellow and black. Anyone say yellow and black? Raise your hand high. Go ahead, don't be shy. All right, now, how many of you said red and white? Okay, congrats to the red and white folks. It hasn't been yellow and black since 1971. All right, you will not, yes. Well, you will notice yield signs now for the rest of your life once you've done this. And what this showcases is that it's very hard for us to change our mind. We get something baked into our head, and that's the way it is. And what I've tried to do here is to teach you a little bit something new about a different business model that you have not heard a lot about. And there may be some skepticism that can this business model really work? But you can see that we've done it in scale. CHS is the largest cooperative in the country. It's some $60 billion in revenue, operates in 35 different countries, would be a Fortune 100 company if they were listed as a stock-held company. And then you have co-ops that have less than $1 million in revenue. I think that we are the answer for a lot of our society ills. We were local before that was even talked about as being a good thing. This just kind of kills me, that Walmart is promoting the fact that they've got local produce. I'm a global citizen. I want everyone in the world to do well, but Walmart is local. I'm not buying it. B Corps, a couple of folks that have mentioned B Corps, a wonderful way of doing business. Had co-ops been doing their job properly, B Corps never would have come to be in existence because we are the original B Corp. And when it comes to this idea of crowdfunding, that's how every co-op gets started. Is we go door to door and farm to farm or house to house, whatever it is, and collect money to get the co-op started. So we were doing that before it was even a thing. Absolutely. So we have a message that I think resonates well with younger people. We just got to do a better job of getting out there and talking about it. Because of this capital issue, and we don't play by the same rules that our investor-owned businesses do, we don't have an investment fund. So if I've got a 401k or a 403b plan, we don't have a plan that says, hey, you can pick this fund and put it in a fund that will invest in co-ops. Keith and I have been working on how we're going to do that. My tombstone is written. Here lies Adam Schwartz. He helped create a co-op investment fund, or he died trying. So hopefully to erase that last part, and that we'll get there. All right, I've been talking for way too long. What I'd like to take a moment here is for you to turn to your partner, do it in groups of 2 or 3, and just say what ideas that I talked about or that you've had about co-ops, what resonated with you. So have that conversation for 2 minutes, and we'll come back.
Surprised to see your picture in there.
Time, okay. All right. Okay, 2 minutes and then we're okay.
I feel like there's a lot to do there. constraints, don't care about don't care about social policies that other utilities have, like subsidies, cheapest rates. They want to have inclusive cross-border services, low cost of service customers, water public, sort of like low profile, high load.
Okay, folks, I've been given the hook that we are just about out of time. I would love to hear what your conversation was about, but we're going to do that in a private manner so that folks can get on with their lives. Hey, who's that? If you're interested in co-ops, I'm interested in talking to you. When people ask me what I do for a living, my response is, how much time do you have? Because I can really talk about this for a very long time. That's my license plate. What I'm trying to do is get everyone to have a Go Co-op license plate, at least one in every state. So if you live in a state that's not represented here and you want to get a license plate, take a picture of it and I'll send you a gift card to REI. All right, that's the deal I make with folks. I didn't talk about preschool co-ops. There are preschool co-ops. There are funeral co-ops. You can have a co-op existence from cradle to grave and everything in between. The business model works. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in working for a cooperative in energy, I'm interested in helping you get a job. That's my contact information. It has been an extreme honor for me to be here with you today, and I look forward to continuing the conversation informally now. So I will turn it back to you.